distant, muffled explosion, then a single, comical bird squawk. Cold open, hook. It's day 7 of the great pizza shortage. Your trusty, rusty shopping cart just got repossessed by a highly organized gang of squirrels. The local pigeon population has declared itself a sovereign nation, and your last remaining sardine can now identifies as a valuable art installation. The world, my friends, is getting thirsty. Pause. Channel greeting. Hey survivors, welcome back to our channel, the hand-drawn guide to staying mostly functional when the world gets weird. Quick hook promise. Today, we're sketching exactly where to find questionable water in a city, purely for laughs and fictional preparedness. Main body. Because let's face it, when the taps run dry and the clouds refuse to cooperate with anything other than a light drizzle of regret, you're going to start looking at puddles with a certain speculative hunger. But fear not, intrepid explorer of the utterly improbable. Our concrete jungle holds secrets, dark and dank, but potentially moist. Remember, folks, this is for hypothetical, comedic purposes only. Do not attempt any of these highly inadvisable sketch-based suggestions in real life. Unless you enjoy dramatically inconvenient cartoon physics, then, by all means, proceed with caution. Scenario number 1, the porcelain oasis, toilet tanks. All right, picture this. You've ransacked every vending machine, kicked over every public fountain for a hopeful dribble, and now you're staring at the porcelain throne, specifically the back of it, the tank. Yes, that's right. That little reservoir behind the bowl, intended for the most mundane of daily flushes, often holds a few gallons of what was city-grade water. It's been sitting there largely untouched by the horrors of the bowl itself, a silent guardian of lukewarm, slightly dusty hydration. It's the equivalent of finding a forgotten juice box in the back of a very old, very dusty fridge. You know it's probably okay, but you're going to squint at it real hard before you commit. The challenge? Getting to it. Most toilet tanks are not designed for easy siphoning by desperate apocalypse goers. You might need to wrestle the lid off, which often feels like trying to remove a stubborn limpet from a whale. And then, once you're in, you're greeted by the charming mechanism of a float ball and a flapper valve. It's like a miniature ceramic Rube Goldberg machine, designed solely to prevent you from getting a decent drink. Purification, you ask? Well, in our delightful fictional world, you'd simply employ the ancient art of the triple strain. That involves a very old sock, a slightly less old sock, and then, for good measure, a mystical belief that any remaining particles will simply evaporate out of shame. If it looks vaguely brown, just call it rustic. If it tastes vaguely metallic, congratulations, you've unlocked the essence of urban decay flavor profile. It's an acquired taste, much like betrayal or interpretive dance. Scenario number 2, the surprise shower, fire sprinkler systems. Next up, the grand, dramatic, and utterly impractical solution, fire sprinklers. Every major building has them, snaking through the ceiling like metallic vines, just waiting for a reason to dramatically spew their content. And in our fictional world, you're just the person to give them that reason. Now, the water in these systems is often stagnant, sitting there for years, collecting, well, let's just say character. It might be a delightful shade of rust orange, or perhaps even a deep murky green, suggesting it's been marinating a delightful cocktail of pipe corrosion and forgotten dust bunnies. Getting it out? That's the fun part. Accidentally setting off a sprinkler system will, of course, unleash a torrent of water, along with a cacophony of alarms that will surely attract every disgruntled squirrel and rogue street mime within a 5-block radius. Imagine trying to collect this deluge. You'd need buckets, overturned trash cans, maybe even an impromptu tarp fashioned from a discarded banner for Megamart's grand closing sale. It's less about strategic collection and more about chaotic panic, trying to save every precious drop while simultaneously being drenched in a shower that smells faintly of old pennies and bureaucratic paperwork. For purification, we'd recommend the vapor of vexation method. Simply boil the water until it's so frustrated by its own existence that it voluntarily sheds all impurities. Or, if that doesn't work, just add a pinch of optimism and a liberal dose of denial. The post-apocalyptic palate is surprisingly forgiving, especially after 3 days of chewing on dried twigs. Scenario number 3, the warm embrace, residential water heaters. Ah, the domestic giant, the silent sentinel of scalding hot showers past, the water heater. These metallic behemoths in basements and utility closets can hold anywhere from 30 to 80 gallons of water. That's a lot of potential liquid. The problem? It's often very, very hot, and getting it out requires a bit of wrestling. Accessing a water heater is less about finesse and more about brute force charisma. You'll need to locate the drain valve, which invariably seems to be designed by someone who actively disliked future generations. It's usually low to the ground, hidden behind a mess of pipes, and notoriously stiff. Trying to turn it feels like arguing with a very stubborn ghost. And when it finally budges, prepare for a gush of water that might just be a little too eager to escape its confined existence. The first few gallons from a long dormant water heater might resemble a rusty, tepid swamp. This is where the true comedic challenge lies. You'll want to avoid the sludge layer at the very bottom, which is probably home to a microscopic civilization of friendly but highly territorial bacteria. Our fictional purification method for this is the distillation of despair. You boil it, obviously, then you gaze into the steaming pot, contemplating all your life choices that led you to this moment, until the sheer emotional intensity purifies the water through the power of existential angst. Or you could just leave it out in the sun until it evaporates and condenses on the underside of a plastic sheet you caped to a broken window, which is just science, but with more dramatic flair. Scenario number 4, the wishing well remix, decorative fountain pumps. You know those charming little decorative fountains in office lobbies, shopping malls, or public parks? The ones with the bubbling rocks and the perpetually wet cherubs? Well, my friends, their pumps are secret stashes of mildly chlorinated, possibly algae-infused water. The trick here is finding one that still has water in its reservoir. Many will have dried up like a bad comedian's career. But if you find one, congratulations! You've located a prime spot for, well, water that was probably never meant for drinking. It's full of whatever people threw in there for luck. Coins, old gum, maybe a forgotten dream or two. And, of course, algae. Lots and lots of algae. Green, slimy, suspiciously enthusiastic algae. Retrieving this water is often an exercise in contortionism, as the reservoirs are usually buried beneath rocks or cleverly disguised planters. You'll be stretching, reaching, and probably getting your sleeves soaked in a concoction that smells faintly of damp moss and unfulfilled wishes. For purification, we employ the algae annihilation through artistic expression method. Simply draw a picture of yourself looking absolutely disgusted with the water. The sheer power of your artistic revulsion will cause all impurities to spontaneously transmute into tiny, benevolent glitter particles. Or you can just filter it through a coffee filter if you still have one, and then wonder why your coffee now tastes like a pond. Scenario number 5, the last-ditch guzzle, radiator lines. Now we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, or rather the bottom of the rusty pipe. Radiator lines. These carry water, or often a glycol-based coolant, through heating systems. In a true comedic apocalypse, when all other options have been exhausted, you might look at these with a desperate, hopeful glint in your eye. The water in radiator lines is typically murky, full of rust, and possibly mixed with various antifreeze chemicals. Definitely not ideal. But hey, in a purely fictional, utterly absurd scenario, when your cartoon thirst is at an all-time high, desperation can make you consider some truly questionable plumbing. This isn't just water, it's a historical record of every temperature fluctuation that pipe has ever endured. Getting this water, that's the real gag. You're looking for drips, slow leaks, or the sheer heroic effort of trying to open a valve that hasn't moved in 50 years. It's a painstaking process, collecting mere drops that might take hours to fill a thimble. It's less a water source and more a slow, theatrical performance of profound patience and questionable judgment. For our comedic purification, we'd use the wishful thinking evaporation technique. You just stare at the water really, really hard and wish the bad stuff away. If that doesn't work, well, just call it rustic mineral water and hope for the best. After all, what doesn't comically inconvenience you makes you dramatically more likely to appreciate a clean sip later. Wrap up/takeaway. So there you have it, fellow fictional survivors. A highly unrecommended, utterly impractical, and entirely humorous guide to finding questionable hydration in a post-apocalyptic cityscape. Remember, in our world of sketches and silly scenarios, the goal isn't just to survive, but to do it with a healthy dose of dark humor and a profound appreciation for the absurd. Because when the world ends, you might as well get a good laugh out of it. Dramatic beat. Closing and CTA. That's it for today's page from the Apocalypse Sketchbook. If this entertained you for at least 5 minutes, hit like, drop your funniest hypothetical survival idea in the comments, and subscribe so the next disaster feels slightly more ridiculous. Stay sharp, stay